I'm seeing a lot of familiar names coming up on my screen here from all the people joining. It looks like we've got a number of Pexels heroes in the mix, which is cool. For those of you who don't know, Pexels heroes are the photographers on Pexels who are part of this invite-only community. And they're some of the best photographers that contribute their work to Pexels. So thank you to you guys for joining us here. It's the first time you guys are all probably seeing my face. So hello, I'm Monica. You hear from me on Slack and through emails. I'm the head of community at Pexels. So I imagine if you're on this webinar, you already know what Pexels is, but if you've somehow managed to get on the webinar and you don't know what Pexels is, it is a number 8 most trafficked photography website in the world. So it's really cool. It's where you can find a number of free stock photos that are all contributed by our amazing photographers. So if you are somebody looking for photos, maybe you're a social media manager or you're a graphic designer, you know, we kind of have a lot of people that are looking for awesome photos, and you can go ahead and find those on Pexels. Separately, if you are a photographer, you can actually join as a photographer on Pexels, upload your amazing work, and we'll go ahead and feature it. You'll get tons of downloads, millions of views. So it's a great way to promote your photography brand, your work. And you can also link to Instagram. You can link to Twitter. You can accept donations from PayPal, which is really cool. So yeah, that's a little bit about Pexels. I'm really excited to have Pei with us. I am one of the 801. I mean, I can't see the exact number, but like Pei has an astronomical number of followers on Instagram. I'm one of them. Maybe you guys are also some of them. And I guess let's go ahead and get started. So a little bit about Pei. She's somebody whose photos really, really struck a chord with me. I love how varied her images are. It looks like she travels all over the world, has the most amazing life. So wanting to learn a little bit more about her, I wrote to her out of the blue, and she was kind enough to sit down for this chat with me. Pei used to be a full-time public school teacher, was always a photographer, am I right? You didn't just pick up photography randomly one day. You've been a photographer for a number of years, and finally made the jump from being a full-time teacher to a full-time commercial photographer. You get a lot of amazing gigs, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So welcome, Pei.
Great, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's so fun to be a part of a new community that I had no experience with prior to this.
Awesome. So I think it'd be cool if people can hear a little bit from you to understand your background. How did you actually make the jump from being a full-time teacher to being a full-time photographer?
Yeah, no, great question. So for me, all of my education and training is in well, psychology and education. So I was working as an elementary school special ed teacher for 10 years. During that time, I was also doing photography on the side, and I was building it as a hobby at first. And then as part of that, I would bring my camera into the classroom, and I would take photos of my students and send them home to the parents. And the parents would be really happy with the photos, and then would ask if I would do a portrait session with their kids. And then some of the parents were getting remarried, so they asked me if I would shoot weddings. And so I slowly turned it into something that I was doing for business, or for money rather, as I was growing, or as I was growing as a teacher. So the early start of my photography business was as a wedding and portrait photographer, and I realized that really wasn't where my passion was. I enjoyed the photos that I was creating there, but and my clients were always happy. But when it came down to it, at the end of the day, what I really loved doing was taking photos when I traveled. You know, just showing people the way that I saw the world and the things that I was seeing when I was traveling. But I had no idea at that time how to connect with clients that weren't just the people in my immediate community, right? I think that's a big struggle for a lot of photographers, especially early on. I mean, this was in the mid 2000s when I was doing this. It was before Instagram. You know, I was on social media, but I was using, you know, mostly Flickr at the time. But even that, you know, I didn't really have a big audience. I didn't know how to really turn what social media was at the time into something that would lead to work. So eventually, thanks to Instagram, I was able to grow a following, connect with clients outside of my immediate community, and then get hired to do the type of work that I wanted to do, which was the travel stuff. So I started working for tourism boards, travel publications, hotels, airlines, different things that would require me to travel someplace and take photos and share on my feed or on their feed.
So cool. It's when you say it, it just sounds so easy. Like, oh, all of this just naturally happened.
Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't easy. And it definitely wasn't just like a natural, like, oh, I just started posting on Instagram and like everything just came to me. It wasn't like that. And it certainly took years of building to get to that point.
Okay. That's super interesting. Cause I mean, obviously this conversation is about Instagram, of course, as a vehicle to, give you the opportunity to have a new career in photography. Would you say it's like the thing that enabled you to go from teacher to full-time photographer?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
without question.
That's incredible. So a lot of the people that are on this webinar now, maybe even those who aren't, that'll watch it later, came to me with this one question. It kept happening. So if I watch this webinar, will I get 800,000 followers? And the short answer, unfortunately, is no. But the idea here is for Pei to talk a little bit about some of the things she's learned along the way, because it wasn't overnight, Pei, that you got like 800,000+ followers. Like, obviously you learned the craft, you understood how Instagram worked and how to really take the right types of photos and how to put them out there for the world to see, to get to that 800K. And, of course, the rest is history in terms of your career. So can we talk a little bit about some of the tools and tips that you kind of picked up along the way? And I guess the first question that'll help us with that is, if you were giving yourself advice, back when you first started, today, so what would you tell your early self just now starting on Instagram, knowing everything you know today?
That's a really good question. I do definitely want to address the fact that just because you're watching this does not make it so that you will automatically have everything you need to grow your following. I do have to say that the reason that my following grew to such a size was really thanks to the Instagram team putting me on the suggested user list early on.
Yep.
So I don't think that list still exists today. I remember when it was a huge thing that was talked about all the time. How do I get on this list? How do I stay on this list? And I was just fortunate enough that because I've been using Instagram since day one, practically, the community was a lot smaller then, right? It looked a lot different than it looks now. So what worked then doesn't necessarily work the same way now. So so it is, I do have to say, much harder now. It's much harder now to grow an audience and much harder to sort of stand out from the crowd, just because there are so many people who are using Instagram.
Yep.
So I guess to answer your question specifically, the thing that I would really focus on is to emphasize that it's really key to focus on to create the type of work, to create and share the type of work that you really want to be doing. Mm-hmm. So for example, if you want to be doing more wedding and portrait stuff, that's the type of stuff you should be sharing. You should be sharing the stuff you want to get hired to do. And you should be focusing on the type of stuff that you feel passionate about and feel like you can actually create incredible content around. Mm-hmm. So if you want to do more travel stuff, take yourself out and get out there in the world and travel and get those images to fill your portfolio with, so that when people look at your feed and decide whether or not they can hire you, they'll know what you can do already. Yep. So it's a lot of like upfront sacrificing. It's going to be a lot of the free trips or whatever aren't just going to fall in your lap. It's going to be a lot of like saving money so that you can go on the trip, so that you can build your portfolio, so that you can get hired by these types of clients.
Got it. And what was one of the first trips that you took to do just that?
Well, all of these trips that I did were I guess a lot of the portfolio building that I was doing came prior to Instagram. So I, for instance, because I was a teacher, I had to be here. I'm based in the Bay Area. So I had to be here during the school year. So I would just take my summers to travel. So I would essentially do weddings so that I could earn money to pay for camera gear and pay for travel. So I would set aside a portion of every summer so that I could take a trip. And I'd say early on, so 2006, I went to Thailand and Laos. 2007, I spent a month in China. So all of those kind of early foundation, or those early trips kind of laid the foundation for me as a travel photographer. So I started to learn what it was like to travel. Did I enjoy doing it? How do I actually create good imagery when I travel? And then by the time Instagram came around, it was, iPhone only. So I was only capturing on my iPhone. You couldn't even import from your camera roll at the time.
Yeah.
So you had to capture within the Instagram app on the phone itself. So I wasn't pulling in any of those old images from China or Laos or wherever. It was really the fact that I knew how to use a camera in those types of situations.
It's really astonishing because when you look at your Instagram, a majority, a huge percentage, I don't know if you have an exact number, but like, I don't know, 80, 90, 95% of your photos on Instagram are actually shot with a mobile device. And what's most impressive to me, and probably others listening, is you're hired by Apple, by Google, by Adobe, UNICEF, like the list goes on and on, for work that you shot on a smartphone. And that's crazy.
Yeah, it's been a pretty wild ride, I would say. I think that for the first 5.5 years, I was iPhone only on Instagram, initially because I had to be, and then because I took it upon myself as a personal challenge. What can I do with this device? How far can I push this one device in photography? I already knew all of the DSLR settings and everything. I know how to achieve what I want on a DSLR, but how can I achieve comparable results on an iPhone? And that was really my personal challenge. So now there's a mix of some non-iPhone stuff, but it's still primarily iPhone because that's the camera that I have with me all the time. And I know that it's a powerful camera. And so for example, one of the clients that hired me, this was a few years ago, and at the time I was still iPhone only, Mercedes hired me for a pretty large scale shoot. And they said that the image that I was going to capture for them is really, big production for one photo. That photo was going to go on my Instagram feed and on their website. And I said, hey, just so you know, everything that I take and post on Instagram is taken with an iPhone. Everything I share on Instagram is taken with an iPhone. So are you okay if I do this big campaign for you with an iPhone photo? And they said, well, if you're telling us that everything that we're looking at on your feed, which we're using as like your portfolio to decide whether or not we want to hire you, if everything was shot on an iPhone, we know that you are good with an iPhone. So we trust you to just make that decision and do it if you'd like. And I did it, and it was great.
That's crazy. So you shot the Mercedes campaign with an iPhone?
Yeah. It was an iPhone like 5 at the time. Yeah.
Oh my God. It didn't even have like the dual lens, like none of that fancy stuff. Okay.
Oh no.
All right. So I need to know, people are probably wondering, like, what are some of the tools, like the hardware that you use on your iPhone, and even like some of the software, like the apps, the editing apps, like what is your arsenal go to?
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of additional lenses, I have, my current phone is iPhone 10. So I have the 2 lenses. If you have any Plus phone, you also have the 2 lenses. So that kind of gets me into like the telephoto realm. Not true telephoto, but telephoto compared to the regular iPhone lens. And then I love Moment lens, primarily for the wide. Yeah. So they have 4 different lenses, but I only use the wide because the telephoto is redundant since I already have the 10. And I'm just not really into the look of the super fisheye, and I don't really shoot macro. The macro lens is great. I just don't really shoot that. So I would recommend the Moment wide. And the other thing I actually pulled it out. I love is the Joby Gorilla Pod, I think it's a Joby Grip Tight micro stand, which is so perfect for it's barely larger than my chapstick. I can just put it in my pocket when I'm traveling. And I can set up my phone to do a long exposure if I want. Or a hyperlapse or anything like that. Any type of content where I'd want to stabilize my phone, I can use this for. And in terms of apps, I primarily capture using the native iPhone app. I'm an iPhone user. I do also, on occasion, shoot with something like the Huawei phone. The Mate 10 has the Leica lenses, which is kind of cool. But by and large, I've been iPhone. And I shoot with a native camera because it's so powerful. When they added the exposure compensation feature, that was like a game changer. Mm-hmm. And I might also use an app like Cortex Cam to capture. It kind of allows you to do handheld, long exposure looking shots. But the new live photo features that they built into the new iOS can also give that same functionality, which is really cool. The apps that I love for editing are Prime. So that's Prime with two eyes. Yeah, Prime with two eyes. I also use Visco sometimes, and I almost always come back. So Prime and Visco I like for the filters. Mm-hmm. Snapseed I love for the overall functionality. And I also do, I love Screwit. That's SKRWT for perspective corrections, because you can have really fine control over what you're doing. And Touch Retouch for editing, like cloning and healing stuff. So if there's like a piece of trash on the street that you want to get rid of, you can edit it out with that really easily. And I've also been using Lightroom CC a lot more these days. So it kind of, functionally does a lot of the stuff that the other apps do, but it's kind of nicely built into one place. Cool. And the reason it's so great is because I can sync across devices, so that I can now very easily, if I've shot on my DSLR and I want to put that on Instagram, I can just sync it with my phone and upload it.
So cool. And do you ever take your images off your iPhone and edit on your computer, or do you almost...
No.
This is crazy, Pei.
Yeah. So basically my rule was if I shoot it on my phone, I have to edit it on my phone. So everything was done on the phone, which is kind of why I've embraced over the years all those different apps that sort of focus on doing one thing. Like Screwit helps with perspective correction. Mm-hmm. Touch Retouch helps with cloning. Because, until, Lightroom CC is very, very close to like taking over and replacing everything. But until Lightroom CC became as powerful as it is now, no one product did everything the way that I wanted it to.
Got it.
So that's why I still jump around.
Cool. We got a question from Peter asking if people can get a list at the end of this with the resources you're mentioning. So yes, I'll get that from Pei. Cool. Amazing. Okay. So we've talked a little bit about the hardware, the software. Mm-hmm. Now, I was looking at your Instagram and you get like thousands and thousands of likes on most of your photos, but there was one photo that I was like so surprised it got like 9,000 plus likes. And it was a photo featuring Luna Poop, who is your precious
baby girl. Yeah.
Your baby girl dog. So you can go on her Instagram. Do you want to tell them your Instagram handle so people can jump on there?
Oh yeah, mine. So my Instagram handle is the first initial of my name and my last name. So PKETRON. So P Ketron.
P Ketron. Yeah. So basically, if you go on there, you can look along as we talk about it. But there's an image of lovely Luna Poop on Ocean Beach. And tell us a little bit about this image. Like, what was it about this particular image that generated over 9,000 likes, whereas some of your other photos can get like 2,000, 3,000. This one just shot through the roof recently. What's up with it?
Yeah. So good question. I think that what's important to mention here also is that over the years, we've seen like huge changes, and even I have to say declines in engagement overall. Like a lot of people who do what I do. So people who have, built huge followings on Instagram, they have created, full-time professional photography careers out of what they do on Instagram. What we found, and I know people talk about it all the time, but it really is the Instagram algorithm has shifted so that different content is being served to different people. And it isn't being, I have 800,000 followers. They aren't all seeing the photos that I'm sharing. So I do have to say that 2 years ago, literally anything that I put up would easily get over 10,000 likes. But as the algorithm has shifted, it's been a real struggle to sort of achieve those levels again, just based on, I don't even know what, right? There's like, we could spend the whole time talking about the algorithm, but I was surprised to see, I had kind of grown accustomed to sort of adjusting my expectations as far as what a successful image on Instagram looked like. And I do have to say that one of the things that I've had to shift is reminding myself that if I'm happy with the image, if it's an image that I'm proud of, then the number doesn't matter, right? The number of likes, the number of comments don't matter. But in terms of, getting hired by clients and whatnot, they're looking at all these things. So it's not really that, like, you can't ignore the numbers altogether. So with that particular image, I don't know what it was that resounded with people that looked at it, but I believe that what happens is that your images are only being served to a certain percentage of the population who follows you. So 800,000 followers, they don't all see my image, but those who do, if something resonated with them about it, like, man, this was like an incredible sunset, and it's kind of nice to just have that little bit of the dog there to provide scale. The more people who like it, then I think the more the photo will be served to other people, because they'll say, actually, the Instagram system internally automatically has like pinged this as an interesting image. So now we're going to share that out to more of Pace followers, right? So it's kind of like running your image with a test audience to see if they'll like it, and then before sending it out to other people. I don't know if this actually is how it works. I think there's some truth in it. I don't know exactly aren't true, but it was pretty nice to see some high levels of engagement after a long time of things being pretty quiet.
That's crazy. So it makes me think of my own Instagram where I see the same thing happening as well. I'll post a video of my cat, and suddenly, like, people I haven't heard from in eons are liking the photo, commenting on it. And it makes me wonder, like, how did Oliver see this photo when I haven't heard from Oliver, nor do I see him in my feed for a long time? But as your image or video grows in popularity and likes within the followers that do see it, it'll get out there to more people.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's cool. And do you ever use hashtags to bring people to your photos?
I do. Over the years, I've had periods where I've never used a single hashtag, or have only used them because I'm doing a campaign for a client that's requiring it. Or, there's now Instagram has the whole paid partnership with such and such company that you can turn on in your advanced settings. I think mostly if you're a business account or if you have a larger number of followers, I'm not really sure. But before, the law requires that if we're getting paid to post about something, that we have to disclose that it's a job, basically. So that's where the hashtag sponsored, hashtag ads, those types of things, like in partnership with so-and-so, that type of language came about. So I've been exploring hashtags more. I mean, like anyone else, I'm kind of like, okay, well, if the Instagram algorithm is kind of fighting against me, what can I do to sort of, get my photos seen by more people? So I do use hashtags. And I teach a lot of iPhone photography and social media classes. And the number one question I get asked is, how do I use hashtags? What hashtags should I use? How many should I use? How do I find more hashtags to use that are appropriate? So I would say that even though Instagram allows you to post they allow you to use up to 30 hashtags in a post, I would say don't use more than 10.
Okay.
I think that it really sends a bad message to your followers, and it comes across as desperate, like you're just trying anything to get attention. And I think a good rule of thumb is that you shouldn't have more hashtags in your caption than you have. Your hashtag list shouldn't be longer than your actual caption.
Got it.
So, and that applies even if you're putting the hashtags in the comment, not everyone hashtags in the main caption, they bury it in the comments. That still applies. It should just be like a reasonable amount. So it looks like you want to get your photo exposure, but you're not desperate. And then I think that the engagement is higher that way anyway. So your hashtags do serve to allow your photo to be more discoverable. It basically adds your photo to this photo stream that already exists on Instagram. So I would say don't use too many, but then also look for middle of the road hashtags, which just means that the photo, the hashtag should always be relevant. So if it's a hashtag that you don't know why exists, you shouldn't be using it. If it's not relevant at all to your image or what you're saying about it, you also shouldn't be using it, right? Just find something that's actually relevant to what you're sharing And in terms of middle of the road hashtags, I would say the reason you don't want to use hashtags that are like extremely popular and not very specific, like that are too general, right? Like I could post something like hashtag dog. I mean, how many people are using hashtag dog? Like millions and millions. So when your photo gets put into that list of hashtags, or into the stream of hashtags, it's all based on order of recency. So if I hashtag dog and 2 minutes later you hashtag dog on one of your photos, by the time anybody clicks on that hashtag, my photo will have been buried so far down in that stream that nobody's going to see it. Right. That is literally doing nothing to get my photo seen by more people.
Yep.
But something like hashtag dogs of San Francisco. I'm here in San Francisco. It's a region-based hashtag. There's not as many people using it. It's still a pretty big hashtag, but it's, there's a chance that you clicking into it, tomorrow would see my hashtag or later today or something. And then you don't want a hashtag that's not being used by that many people, because, yes, it might get it seen by more people, but it might be like one more person, right? So you want the hashtags that are active, but not too active.
Got it. So don't take a photo of yourself in a tent and do hashtag adventure.
Yeah, that's like so generic that
yeah,
so, it's not going to really be helpful.
How can people find those middle of the road hashtags? How have you found them?
Yeah, so I think that the nice thing about Instagram now is that, you can search for hashtags. So I would say even before you make your post, you can even do it as you're typing the caption. It's just a little easier and more reliable if you do it beforehand. Just search for some hashtags that you're kind of interested in. You want to see how they're doing. The nice thing of that is that Instagram gives you a number next to the hashtag that tells you how many images have been hashtagged with that mm-hmm. particular one. And so you can see if it's like 5 million something, then one photo isn't really going to make much of a difference in that. It's not really going to, it's not going to be seen, but maybe like something with 10,000 photos, okay, that would be a much better choice. So just kind of search around with some hashtags. There's kind of, anybody who's been hashtagging or on Instagram or social media for a while kind of knows that there's like a formula for the way hashtags work. So you can kind of play with it and see what else, like, do I want to do dogs of San Francisco? Do I want to do dogs of, whatever? Sorry, everything is revolved around dogs right
That's
now.
Okay.
Sorry,
I'm a dog lover.
Yeah, but the other thing that you can do is look to see who your peers are who are sharing similar content.
Okay.
And so hashtag discoverability is a problem, right? Like I know that I want to use some hashtags, but I don't really know any hashtags. I don't know what hashtags are out there. So look at your peers' images and look to see what hashtags they're using. Figure out why they're using it. Like if they're using something like hashtag life well traveled, where did that come from? I would just do a little research to see, is that a brand hashtag? Do you want to be using that hashtag knowing that you're promoting some brand and you don't even realize it?
Good point.
And so look to see what your peers are using. That's a really great way to discover new hashtags. And then I just discovered a tool the other day. I haven't used it personally, but it seems really cool. And I wanted to recommend something because people always ask. But there's a tool, it's a website, it's a free website called Hashtagify Me.
Okay.
Hashtagify.me. And I can send that to you later too if you guys miss it.
Please.
But it's basically a way to explore and find related hashtags. So if I say something like life well traveled, it's like creates a little bit of a word cloud to show you who's using that hashtag and the other hashtags that they're also using.
Okay.
Which is just kind of cool. It's a nice way to discover new hashtags that I think, especially people just getting started, they might not know what hashtags are out there. So it's a good discovery tool.
So good rule of thumb, avoid hashtags that have like 1 million plus photos because your photo will never be found within the mix, right?
Yeah.
And try to find those like relevant hashtags that are more niche, that are a little more middle of the road and don't have millions of photos also behind them. We just got a hashtagify.me is down for maintenance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is the one I just copied and pasted in there too. So that's the correct one. Hopefully it comes back up. If nothing else, you can just Google how do I find hashtags? And I think there are other tools. Some of them are paid maybe, but There are other options out there.
Okay, cool. And so you get tons of comments, and I see that you respond to like a lot of them, maybe most of them. Like, has that been beneficial for you in terms of getting followers and growing your audience as well?
Yeah, for sure. I think that the important thing to remember with Instagram is that it's social media, and it's called social media for a reason.
Yeah.
So that like everybody should work to keep it social. I think that's been a huge part of growing my account over the years and becoming successful doing what I do. Because if I ask for example, a lot of people use this strategy with their captions to build engagement by asking questions in their captions. So if I say, you know, like, I don't personally do this, but a lot of people will do something like tag somebody in the comments that you want to be like, that you want to see this view with, or like, if you were to travel around the world, who would you want to travel with? And then, you know, so it's like tagging other people and like getting engagement, or even asking questions like, where are you traveling to this summer? And then if you're asking questions, you have to be willing to respond to people when they answer you. So like, you're asking questions to start a conversation. So actually let that be a conversation, because what you'll find is that that's how you build relationships, and that's how you grow a following. And that's those people who are like more invested in you are more likely to stick with you over time, and that refer you for jobs if people are asking for referrals, that sort of thing. So it's really important to keep social media social by, you know, not just responding to the comments that you get on your own feed, but commenting on other people's images, liking and commenting in a genuine way on other people's images. That's a huge part of it. Just building a network of other photographers is key to growing a following.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, because oftentimes I'm guilty of this as well, where like you just like post a photo and kind of like sit back and like wait for all the stuff to come to you. But I've had to like remind myself, like, no, to really be part of this community, like I have to go out there and give back and like other people's photos that I genuinely like, and sort of engage with other people's work rather than just kind of waiting for people to like acknowledge my work and comment on my photos. But I think it's a good rule of thumb to also participate when you're not posting, but like on other people's.
Yeah, absolutely. And just have those conversations. And I have a lot of followers, but I still notice people who comment consistently, who leave like valuable commentary or ask questions. I don't respond to every comment, but I answer every question.
Okay.
So that's because it's, I don't have enough hours in the day necessarily to say thank you to every single person who leaves a comment. I love the feature that they built recently, which allows us to like comments, which is nice. So if somebody says, great photo, I love it, you're doing good work, I may not have the time to sit and type out thank you to each person who says that, but I can pretty easily like the comment. And cool. That's kind of a nice workaround. Yeah.
So I guess 2 questions. Do you have a particular day or time that you post? Like, is there a strategy behind the days of the week that you'll post an image, or the times of the day that you'll post an image to get better engagement, to get more visibility?
Yeah. I mean, so the only time of week when I really won't post is Saturday night.
Yeah.
But that's me personally. And I'm saying that coming from my position where I know that I have a large number of followers and that they're pretty widely spread throughout the world. So everyone's on a different time zone. So just because it's Saturday night here doesn't mean it's Saturday night everywhere, right? So people might be waking up on Sunday morning and seeing that image. So I guess I needed to provide some sort of rule for myself. So my only rule is that I don't post Saturday night. But people who have smaller accounts, so especially more local audiences, right? Like if you know most of your following base is like in New York with you, then you can kind of think about it in terms of what makes the most sense for that user base. So in general, I think weekends are overall less good in terms of engagement, and weekdays are better, especially weekday commute times. So when people are waking up and getting to work in the morning, they're sitting on the train trying to just waste time on their way to work, on their way home from work at the end of the day. They're tired before they get home, cook dinner or whatever. So weekday commute times, I think, are like really high traffic times in general. Okay. And I also, like I've researched this, I've read all the articles and stats on it. That's generally what people say. They say weekends overall have lower engagement, but I actually find that I do really well on Sundays, because I think Saturdays definitely, like, people are out and about, they're doing all the things that they're taking photos of that they then share later. Mm-hmm. So they're not looking at Instagram. But I think especially by like Saturday or Sunday later in the day, people are done with their weekend activities and they're home and they're like decompressing after the weekend. They're looking at the images they shared or they took, and they're sharing them on Instagram. So then they're also looking at what you're sharing. So Sundays, I tend to have higher engagement as well, later Sundays.
Yeah. I thought that it was like the weekdays, commute times. Like I'd already heard that one, but I never thought about Sundays being a good day. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. I like later Sundays. I find that I get really like much higher engagement usually Sunday evenings.
And I saw that you have a few videos on there. Do you edit all the videos that you post on Instagram, or is it just direct to Instagram, whatever the video might be?
So I'm not great with videos. I make them all the time. I started with Snapchat a few years ago. That's really like my foray into video was just making Snapchat videos. And so now I do some on Instagram stories, not too many even, but, most of the videos that I post on Instagram are just like a straight up video that I haven't done any editing to. And in those cases, I would just like post straight to Instagram and allow, use the Instagram filters and tools. More recently, I just did one a few months ago for a job that I was doing in Japan.
I saw that one. That was cool.
Yeah, thanks. That was the first like edited video I had ever done. And so I think I actually did edit that on my computer using iMovie, because I'm just not too good. I actually captured it with my Leica Q. Mm-hmm. So I had all that footage on my computer, and it was just kind of easier for me to think about it in that way, because I'm not well versed with video editing tools. So I'm still learning. So that one I did edit on my computer and share.
There's no shame in iMovie. I use it too. I used to use Final Cut Pro, and it's really fancy and sophisticated. Mm-hmm. And then I lost like track of it. I just forgot how to use it. And then when I wanted to edit more video, I went back to iMovie, and it totally works. I mean, it's a great tool, and you can use it on your phone because you can download the app, which is cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that Final Cut, if I remember, I think I took an online class trying to use it, and then they like updated it, and everything was different. And I was like, I'm like so lost now. So I need to learn it properly, I think, or learn some sort of video editing software properly. Cool. But for now, for what I do, the simple stuff, iMovie's great.
All right. Last question I have for you. Who influences you in terms of your style? And I did want to ask you about the photo trends you're seeing. So like, what are some of your, I can't forget this one. Like, I'm really curious to know like what some photo trends you're seeing that you like and ones that you might not like at all.
So I feel like with a lot of photographers that I've been following for a long time, everyone, kind of like me, they're getting to a point where the stuff that they see on Instagram is getting tiresome. Like they've just seen the same things over and over again. So they want to look for something. They want to look for new images that inspire them, and also new ways to capture the world themselves. So I feel like some people who have traditionally only posted stuff like landscapes are doing more street photography, or exploring portraiture, or just kind of changing their style into more of like a photojournalistic documentary style, which I think is kind of cool. I think those are kind of fewer and further between as far as like the Instagram trends are. So I think that's like a small trend that I'm seeing, just like a little bit more of a photojournalistic edge to some images, or to some people who've been only capturing landscapes for so long.
Okay.
But so I like that trend. The other trend that I would say that I find that I have a hard time with is the idea of, and there's nothing wrong with it, I have to say, but the people who make a living by traveling around the world doing only travel shots. There are a lot of couples, I feel like couples who both have big accounts, and all they do, I feel like when I see their stuff, is like bounce from like one resort to resort all around the world, capturing, they're probably like beautiful couples capturing photos of one another in these beautiful settings, and they just live abroad traveling all the time. And I don't know why that's like hugely popular. I don't know why it just like kind of rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
Maybe because, I mean, maybe this is like a subconscious, like I'm jealous of them and I wish I could do the same thing. But I think it's more just because it's just such a trendy thing on Instagram now to have these like aspirational travel posts. And I say this knowing full well that a lot of my Instagram feed is aspirational travel posts, but I feel like my approach is different. And I feel like the reason I do it is because I love traveling. I love the photography aspect of it, the art aspect of it. And I feel like the people who have these accounts that are hugely popular, it's all about just like getting the next company to pay for their next trip or getting the next hotel to sponsor them at their next destination or something like that. I feel like the intentions are different, or our intentions are not the same.
I hear you. I think I know what you're kind of talking about. And one thing that resonated with me, what you said, was like the photojournalism trend that you like.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a big fan of it myself, because I feel like when I see images that are already beautiful just looking at it, and then I read the caption and I can learn something about some culture somewhere in the world that I knew nothing about prior to seeing that image, to me, that's really powerful. Mm-hmm. And, you know, on Pexels, for example, we've got photographers all over the world. And I'm always super curious to see what life is like in that particular place, wherever they may live. Mm-hmm. And so a photo of a woman doing who works in a local community, making a really big difference, I think is really interesting. So more of that type of work, and less of this like self-promotional, look at me in this resort drinking a pina colada in a row.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think that actually one example I can give, I think the difference between the type of travel photography that I do and that I love seeing is like, so I went to Cuba a few years ago, and I did with a friend of mine a photo project documenting the street art of Havana, where we actually met and spoke to and interviewed these artists in Havana and shared their work, shared the stories behind their work, and captured images of their stuff around the city, versus people who I feel, I can't even name names off the top of my head of the other types of travel folks that I'm talking about, but those people I feel are the types who would go to Cuba and not leave the resort.
Yeah.
Right.
Same with Mexico, like the people who go to Cancun and like stick to their resort and the all-inclusive meals, which is okay. I mean, it's totally okay. Yes. But there's so much more world to explore, so much more beauty to Cuba and to Mexico.
Just like deeper stories to be told than like, look at this beautiful waterfall and the hammock I'm laying in and this bright blue ocean. Like it's beautiful. Everybody would love to do that, but I just want deeper stories.
Totally. I hope nobody hates us for being if you are a resort traveler, that is totally okay too.
I mean, I'm a resort traveler as well on occasion, right? But the photography that I want to share and be known for is not like me lounging by a pool. It's going to be me like out on the streets doing something and like really being a part of the culture that I'm visiting.
Cool. So one question that came up was, tell us about your upcoming classes. How can people sign up for them? How does it work?
Oh, yeah. So I have a couple. So unfortunately, I don't have any online specific classes right now. The next classes I have, if anybody happens to be local in the Bay Area, I'm teaching it at the Image Flow in Mill Valley. So their website is just theimageflow.com. And if you guys have my profile, you can go and I'll have links in my bio for any of these classes coming up. I think I need to actually build a web page, like a site, a page on my site that has all this stuff laid out. But some of them are linked in my about page actually, but theimageflow.com for local Bay Area stuff. I'm also teaching again at Field Trip this weekend, but I think it's full. But there's also the Santa Fe photo workshops this summer, and that's an iPhone photography kind of 5-day intensive class in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Wow, super cool.
Yeah.
2 questions here that I missed earlier. How many hours a day do you spend on Instagram?
Maybe an hour.
Oh, that's good. It's like healthy social media use.
Yeah. And because I pop in and out throughout the day. but it's, you know, maybe 5 minutes each time. I tend to spend more at the end of the day, where I'm more likely to watch some stories at the end of the day, just like the first like 5 or 6 that show up at the top. I don't make it through very many. And I also spend more time on my dog Instagram account than my own, because it's just so much more fun, right?
So
You know?
what's the dog Instagram? Is it just the one, Luna Poop?
Yeah, I have 2 dogs, and the username that we have now, I changed it, but I changed it back to, it's just Luna Poop, at Luna Poop, Poop.
That's hilarious. Okay, and then another question came in. You mentioned you use Instagram to get clients and show your work, but is it possible to earn an income just using Instagram?
So I think it definitely is. A large part of my income stems from clients that I find through Instagram. I would say though that no matter, you know, any freelancer out there kind of understands, I think for the most part, that you have to kind of piece together your living by doing a bunch of different things. So I am a photographer. I get hired to do photography jobs. But I also teach a lot. So a large part of my income comes from teaching. So teaching isn't for everyone though. And I feel like that people should be careful about offering something like lessons or classes when they don't have a background in teaching, or, you know, haven't really thought it out very well. And I also do some work for nonprofits. I'm project managing for a photo nonprofit right now. So I think it is possible. Maybe it's just me because I live in San Francisco and it's really, really expensive here. I can't right now. And also I do have to say, like, if I pushed myself harder, I think that I could make a living solely with photography. But I just have so many other interests. So I kind of mix in other work as well.
Okay, cool. Now the questions are really rolling in. How do you learn new things about photography?
I'm not sure exactly what kind of new things are being asked about, but I think that there's a lot. It's really important to stay up to date with like trends online. Just so like reading articles about photography or reading about the new apps that are coming out. So like keeping up with technology, because so much of that influences our work as photographers who use iPhones or smartphones and Instagram and stuff. So I feel like I just read a lot of articles about like tech news and stuff like that. And then also spend time in terms of like how do I find like new photographers or find inspiration. I do a lot of going to museums, and not just going to museums and looking at the photography, but looking at the other art as well, because so much about photography is like tied to other types of visual art.
Yeah.
So I like to find inspiration off of Instagram. I think that's hugely important, where, you know, if you're finding your inspiration only on Instagram, your photos are going to start to look like every other Instagrammer out there. And that's not what you want.
Sure. So are there any magazines that you like, or blogs, or do you read TechCrunch? Is that kind of where you get a lot of the tech news, or Wired?
Yeah. I feel like, I actually don't know. I follow a bunch of stuff on Twitter. I think that's really where I get it. So like news outlets, tech outlets would like, you know, yeah, TechCrunch would be one of them. A lot of stuff. Oh, there's like a photo. I can give you a list if that's helpful at the end.
Yeah.
Pexels, I think, has a lot of like photo articles.
F-stoppers, they do.
Yeah.
They have some good content as well.
Yeah. Also follow Women Photograph. They're pretty rad.
Women Photograph? Is it a blog or?
So it's so they're just on Twitter, and they kind of tweet. It's like one woman who runs it. She's great. She's a photojournalist, but she's kind of trying to make the world more aware of the disparity between men and women hiring practices in the photojournalism world. But she shares out a lot of really great content as well.
Okay, awesome. Let's see. All right, people really want you to do an online course, so there you have it. But yeah, people were really happy. Very worth their time. So thank you, Pei. Thank you to everyone who joined. Right now, you can only attend Pei's real life courses, but hopefully one day you'll be able to do some online stuff with Pei. Follow her on Instagram and join Pexels if you're not already on Pexels. You probably already are if you're on this. But yeah, that's all from us. We'll be doing more webinars in the near future with other cool influencers, not just on Instagram, but in photography. So thanks again. And thank you, Pei. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.